Hello, and welcome to another edition of North Carolina 4-H's Daily Spark. My name is Lori McBryde, and I'm an Area 4-H agent for the East Region. I would like to introduce you to the Aspire program and then share some tips for how you can become more confident taking the ACT. Today, we will specifically be talking about the science test. But first, Aspire means ACT Supplemental Preparation in Rural Education. It was designed to bridge deficits in rural high school students' performance on the ACT entrance exam and increase the number of students pursuing higher education. By participating in an Aspire class, you will learn the latest tactics and strategies to improve your ACT score. The program is open to rural high school sophomores and juniors and includes 30 hours of ACT course instruction where students will learn the skills they need to tackle the ACT. Students also receive the Princeton Review ACT Study Manual, the Princeton Review Practice Question Manual, and access to 4 full-length practice exams with score analysis and breakdown. Let's talk about some fun facts about the science test. The science test gives you 35 minutes to answer 40 questions. There will be 6 or 7 passages with 10 questions per passage. Science passages will fall into 3 basic categories: charts and graphs, which always come with figures; experiments. These usually have figures, describe several experiments, and are more words than charts and graphs. Then you have opposing viewpoints. Sometimes these come with figures, but they feel more like the dual passages on the ACT reading test. They want you to compare, contrast, and synthesize information. The number of questions that will test the knowledge of actual scientific facts will be few to none. If the ACT science test is a test of reasoning, what do I need to know? Be trendy. Look for trends within a figure or viewpoint. Look for relationships between figures or viewpoints. Common sense is going to play into this as well. And then also outside knowledge. Only 1 or 2 questions that are basic facts will be what the ACT expects most high school students to know. Our basic approach for the science test starts with working the figures. Mark the trends, note the units, look for relationships. Is there a relationship? Is it inverse or direct? Then move on to working the questions. Look up the answers and read only what you need to. Go back to only what you need to. And then finally look at the answers. For tough questions, it's all about the process of elimination, PO. PO is huge in science. What can you get rid of to increase your chances of getting the best answer? And then also the correct answer. Just like on the reading test, you want to work the passages in the order that you choose based on the topics you like best or your personal order of difficulty. These are what we call our now passages, and you raise your score significantly by doing them first. When you're looking for a now passage, you want to make sure that there's relatively small tables and graphs, numbers, not words or symbols, easy to spot consistent relationships, and short answers featuring the numbers of words such as increase or decrease. Let's look at this example. Look at the figure on the screen. Would this be a now, later, or never question for you? Most people would say this would be a later or never question. Just judging by the amount of information in that graph and looking at it makes it hard to determine whether there's any real relationship between the things that are being measured. In this figure, things look much more simple. There's a lot less information, and this one would also be something to consider whether it's now, later, or never. What do you think? Most people would say this is what a now figure looks like. Much simpler than the previous one. Take a look at this one about the electrostatic field theory. What's different in this one than the last two? Would this be a now, later, or never question? How does it fit into your personal order of difficulty? Most people would say this is at least a later question, just for the simple fact that there are no numbers included in this. It's all reading. The other two at least have numbers that you could look at and possibly look up in your answer choices. Next, we need to work the questions. Unfortunately, questions in the science test don't fall as neatly into categories as those that you find on the reading test. But there are still some skills that will help you decide where to start. Look at values or a relationship. Make predictions. Synthesize information and draw conclusions. When you're looking at values or relationships, look to see when something goes up, what happens to something else. Let's look at some examples. Just as we did with the figures that would be in the passages, look at these questions and see if you think they would be now, later, or never. Most people might say this will be a later question. There are some numbers included, but there's still a lot of words. Let's look at the next one. This would be a later or a never question for a lot of people, simply because there are no numbers to look at. There's no values to find in a table or refer back to in the passage. It's all words. What about this one? Seems a lot different than the last two questions. What do you think? Now, later, or never? I would definitely say that this is a now question. The question is shorter, and there's all numbers in the answer choices that have the same units listed. So hopefully this will be pretty easy to look up in the passage or to figure out from whatever figure they have given you. Let's talk a little bit about pacing on the science test. The difficulty of the test fluctuates from one administration to another, but fortunately the curve does as well. A harder test will equal a more generous curve, and an easier test will equal a harsher curve. Don't let a hard question or passage ruin your day. Use the process of elimination, PO, and then from the remaining choices, choose an answer and move on. Unless a question is asking for a straightforward relationship, use PO and move on. Let's look at this chart here and see if you missed just 5 questions. What would your score be? If you said 29, you'd be correct. On the ACT, there are only points for correct answers and no deduction for wrong answers. So if you get caught up on a question, use PO, choose an answer, and move on. The Princeton Review calls this letter of the day. Don't ever leave anything blank. Work your now questions, then your later, and as time is running out, when you get the 5-minute mark, use your letter of the day to finish the test your own and leave nothing blank. You can't get credit if there's no answer to grade, but you can at least have a 25% chance if you put a letter down. So don't panic. Just keep to the strategies we've talked about today related to passages and figures and questions. Remember, now passages will feature relatively small tables and graphs, numbers, not words or symbols, consistent relationships, Short answers featuring numbers or words such as increase or decrease. Questions, you're going to want to look up values in a relationship, make predictions, synthesize information, and draw conclusions. Thank you for watching this edition of 4-H Daily Spark. Join us next week as we take a look at the ACT Math Test on Tuesday and the ACT English Test on Thursday. For more information about the Aspire program, please contact the North Carolina State University Aspire Coordinator, Bianca Glaze, at bglaze@ncsu.edu, or myself, Lori McBryde, at Lori_McBryde@ncsu.edu. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.